Why, yes, my shirt is covered in adorable pugs. Hello to the internet. My name's Craig Montgomery, and we're here today to talk about mindfulness. Shout out to my wonderful friend Emily for suggesting the topic, and because I think it's pretty layered and I have quite a few opinions, I'm gonna turn it into a series. Hey! So welcome to part 1 of mindfulness. Mindfulness is a bit of a buzzword now, so let's do a little bit of demystifying. Psychology today defines mindfulness as a state of active, open attention to the present. I like this definition because of its simplicity. We'll dive into a little bit more of the complex nature of trying to push away your judgments and your intention behind the practice a little bit later. For now, I think a state of active, open attention to the present moment is a fine place to start. So the reason that it's a bit of a buzzword and why there's so many self-help books about mindfulness is the fact that it's based around meditation. And that is a very Eastern thought in our Western culture. If you have hang-ups with the idea of meditation, I encourage you to unpack that and start asking some questions about why. And in the meantime, if you do, you can think of this as a way to exercise your attention span. It's meditation. So the general idea of mindfulness and why it's not just called meditation is that your goal here is to let your mind wander and to put distance between yourself and your thoughts. Whereas meditation in common terms is typically thought as a practice in trying to quiet your mind, trying to limit the amount of thoughts that you are having, trying to achieve that state of ultimate bliss of nothing going on in your brain. Today, I'm just going to cover some general tips about the beginning of finding your way to meditate, and then I'll go into some specific thought experiments and thoughts around mindfulness that have helped me in later videos. Disclaimer: these are just my own opinions based loosely and sometimes directly on things that I've read from varied books, so grain of salt and all that jazz. I don't really feel like there's a correct way to meditate, so it's probably going to take you some experimenting to find a space where you feel comfortable trying to find your focus. I would suggest finding a place that's generally quiet and has some natural lighting. Don't stress out about creating an absolutely still environment. That's the nice thing about mindfulness, is that it's okay if there's some stimulus there, because you really are practicing on pushing the judgments and the distancing yourself from those thoughts, rather than, like I said before, with the meditation where you're trying to obtain that stillness. That's easier in that context too. It's nice to have a generally quiet environment, but since you're not trying to absolutely silence your mind, some stimulus is okay. For instance, if a car honks outside your window, instead of thinking like, oh, now I'm thinking about that car and like why the driver would need to honk his horn and what's going on, and that's just so frustrating because I'm sitting here trying to meditate and instead of letting yourself get wrapped up in the thoughts, the goal here is to put some distance between the experience and yourself, so that you can see the reaction start to rise up in yourself of frustration and distraction and all of those things that you want to say. Those are the judgments. And trying to put some distance between you and that experience, and choosing not to act on that reaction, and letting the sound and the experience and the emotion pass by and just keep moving. More on that later, but just wanted to give an example. It definitely takes some practice. I've also found that a seated position works best for me. I've tried laying down simply because I have back issues and get tired from sitting, but I usually end up falling asleep or for some reason just can't quite focus in a laid down position. Something about being seated really does help me feel like I'm at attention and out of focus. A pillow on the floor, a yoga mat, even just in a chair that's kind of set aside on its own can work for you. It does need to be comfortable. If you're sitting there just fully aching, then it is very hard to work through the process, because you're going to be having to push through quite a few judgments about how much pain your body is in. And the typical practice for mindfulness is anywhere from 10 to 30 minutes. I would suggest starting with trying to aim for 5 or 10 just to get a feel for it. And then, work towards 10 or 15 minutes. and then eventually you can figure out how it works out for you. I actually meditate on the train quite often. That's usually where I get my quiet time in, because I'm in transit and I like to just let my mind wander and do the work there, because it's a moment where I'm already at a standstill. So find out what works for you. And lastly, I'll talk about why I think mindfulness is actually super important. It's been an incredibly powerful tool in helping me come to terms with my anxiety and my depression, and learning to not be so reactionary to my environment. One of the most powerful ideas that I've come across is a statement that simply says, "You are not your thoughts." And that's pretty integral into the world of mindfulness and ACT, which is acceptance and commitment therapy, which I did a lot of research on when I was first starting to look into this. And it's the whole concept behind putting distance between yourself and your emotional experience and the thoughts that you're having. You are not your thoughts. You are inside your body experiencing all of these things. It's just an internal environment. And it was really revolutionary in the way that I thought about myself and my life and the way that I'm experiencing it, and basically gave me more power and control over the way that I was choosing to act in my life. And that was pretty cool and has been super beneficial for me. And I think that the practices and the things that I learned when I was really digging into mindfulness were really beneficial for that process. So I think it has a lot to offer to all types of people from all walks of life, because it's really about getting to know yourself and to know how you react to things, and to learn to be a little bit more kind to yourself, really. So I encourage you to go and try some meditation and, see how it feels for you. See where you are possibly struggling with it, and then tune in next week so we can discuss some ways to maybe work around those struggles and find a better practice in that. And as always, take care of yourself. Okay, bye.